So, what do Gen Z really think? It's a question that's on the tip of the tongues of many people in branding. Many organizations are really keen to make sure they're reaching and, in particularly, earning the attention of Gen Z, particularly when it comes to entering the world of work. So, that's the topic for today. How you doing, guys?
Really well, thank you. Thanks, Chris, for having us.
No, thanks for joining. It's good to take a bit of time out and take a step back and look at these kind of things. Think we were talking a few weeks back, and Imagen Insights are doing some really interesting things, and in particularly your report, which, let me get the wording right here, the brutally honest Gen Z report. So just had to get you on and talk about it. Really, be good to let's talk about the insights from the report, and we can talk about some other things connected to that. But before that, start off with a bit of an intro to yourself.
Thank you. I am Cat Agostino. I'm one of the co-founders at Imagen Insights. We provide qualitative insights to brands and also to agencies direct from our global Gen Z community, of which we now have 35,000 in 111 countries. So we're not in every country, but we're almost there. We're really super excited to be chatting today, not only because we're in our fourth year as a business, but also because we're very excitedly launching a new product. We may come on to talk about that at a later stage, but really, in essence, it will be we're offering real-time insights from Gen Z, but in a way more accessible way than we have done before. And we work with a whole host of brands, from Amazon Prime Video to Google to Nike, PepsiCo, but also really important brands such as Shelter and the Index, Imagen Insight Index, which is our name for it. We will be enabling people to search on any topic within our platform. So it's all housed in our proprietary tech, and they can instantly see daily updated qual-based insights from our community. So it's just a slightly different branch to our offering, but something that we believe is going to be even more meaningful because it means we can pay more young people than we have done ever before.
Yeah, lovely. And yourself, Sinead?
So I'm Sinead. I'm Associate Director for Communications at Imagen Insights, so leading on all of our communications and marketing efforts. I've been with the business coming up 2 years in October, and really just have a passion for really supporting young people to help shape their futures. So in my spare time, I also volunteer for the Young Women's Trust, reviewing and editing CVs of young women that are seeking work or moving in roles. Just really providing them with some guidance based on my knowledge of what I know might work. I'm very happy to be here and chatting to you today, Chris.
Yeah, lovely. Well, I knew there's a good reasons getting you onto the pod. You've got some companies doing some great things. You've got some great backgrounds yourself, and I sense there's a real reason why you got into this in the first place. Why is it important, particularly for employer brand? Why is it important to really keep in touch with what Gen Z wants, what their needs and motivations and concerns are and aspirations are?
It's such a good question, and one that so many people are asking. And in summary, Gen Z are the future. I mean, Gen Alpha are the up and coming generation, but they are the future, and we really need to keep learning from. I mean, sadly, I speak for both of us, we are not Gen Z. We are hopefully on the younger side of millennial. But that makes it even more important, right? For us as a business, but also for other businesses out there, that we need to have that element of cross-generational learning if everybody is going to succeed, if our business is going to succeed. For me personally, if I'm running a Gen Z business and I'm not Gen Z, then how am I going to improve my skills, and how am I going to have longevity in this game? It's by surrounding myself with the younger generation. And in addition to that, they have different views. They've grown up in a very digital focused world. They're digital natives, and that's very different to me. I haven't had that technology my whole life. So they approach things in a very different way. They think about things differently. And I'm sure we'll kind of get onto the importance of workplaces and how that shifts as well. But the way that they will come into a workplace is very different to how I would have gone into the workplace back when I started my career. And I'll let Sinead talk about her amazing report, but there's also fundamental shifts in the way that Gen Z approach things in their working life. So be that work-life balance, be that their career progression, and we've got some beautiful stats to back that up. But mental well-being and having that balance is so crucial to this younger generation. And what I often hear is millennials or older generations pushing back a little bit on that and saying Gen Z don't work as hard, they're not as driven,
Yeah,
they do too much.
fantastic. Yeah.
But I always argue that, and I say, why not flip that on its head and say, finally, they're pushing for what we should have had, and who doesn't want a better work-life balance or harmony? Who doesn't want to have a life outside of work? Who wants to do those like crazy hours that so many of us have done in the past? And I'm not saying that doesn't mean deadlines can't get hit. That doesn't mean don't, work hard while you're at work. But I just think there's a real shift in that approach. And for me, that is absolutely why we need to keep on learning and talking and hear, really, really, truly hear and listen to what Gen Z want and what they think.
Yeah, a million trillion percent. You're so right. I think I often refer to the Gallup Global State of the Workplace report, and I'm amazed actually how many people haven't heard of it before. But it constantly comes back every year on how low employee engagement is. People are actively engaged at work. It's in the low 20s, and when it gets slightly higher, it's seen as being a good thing. Shows there's progress, but engagement at work is really important. So this thing about maybe we talk about it actually with people who know the pod will listen to me and Connor Cotton chat a lot about this, but this thing about, well, when we're working, we just put up with it, or just that's just the way it is. Of course, there's certain things that need to be done in a certain way, and learning things like resilience, etc. But ultimately, if you're going to have more engaged employees, you need to be adapting how you approach it. And actually, the way that I think lots of Gen Z think are actually applicable to other generations as well. It's just that they thought they've had no answer to it in the past. You just do that and you get on with it. I mean, look, this could be a super long episode, so I think we can always part that for maybe a future conversation. But let's dive into this brutally honest report. We've got to spend the rest of the conversation, I think, talking about something that sounds so brutally honest.
Brilliant, thank you. So this was our second iteration of the report. So this was the second year we did it. And previously we'd covered, 5 different sections of life. And this year we felt that really we wanted to dial into work, rest and play, which kind of covers the breadth of what Gen Z are up to, but really dial into each of those elements and find out exactly what they were thinking, but also the why behind why they were thinking like that. So we pay every young person that feeds into the report, which is something we're very proud of. So we were able to poll those across the UK, the US, and Europe. And within that sample, almost half, 48%, listed work-life balance as the most important factor when it comes to deciding where they want to work. And I think that was then followed by career progression at 29% and earnings trailing behind at 18%. So we hear a lot in the press around Gen Z's work ethic and a lot of these, clickbait headlines, as we've already kind of touched on a little bit today. But I think what's really interesting is while they're fighting for that progression, they're actually still putting their mental well-being at the forefront. And I think that was something that really stood out to us because for them, it is finding the balance between the two. When we delved into where they would look for their well-being support, it was actually really interesting coming out of a pandemic that friends and family are those that they seek advice from way more than government guidelines. So we're thinking, guidelines from the NHS and things like that. We had lockdown where there were quite strict rules on us, and actually they're turning to friends and family for that soundboarding, with 52% of them saying that they were told the most influence over their decisions. And then when it came to play, I think one of the stats that kind of really shocked us a little bit was we're hearing so much, not just in our industries, but in life in general, around how the metaverse is really going to shake things up. And, we'll all be living and working in the metaverse in a few years and things will look completely different. We've got AI taking over, but actually 72% of our community reported that they don't own any of these smart technologies. So we're thinking smart glasses, VR headsets. And whether that's a monetary barrier at the moment will be quite interesting to know, and we'll monitor this over coming years. But I think perhaps it's early days, and I think we can think about this when thinking about marketing, content, employer strategy. Um, is it that it should be such a focus on technology at this stage, or are we running before we can walk?
How many people survey? What's the sample size there?
Yeah, so we surveyed across those demographics. We broke it down to do qual and quant, with qual being the main focus of our business to delve a little bit deeper into the insights. So quantitatively, what we did was we got the numbers from 300 plus young Gen Z. And then what we did is we looked through those answers and dialed down into the themes to get some of that qualitative insight from each of the regions a bit further. So the sample numbers were smaller for the qual, but I'm sure, as you can appreciate, going through that many responses as we had with the quant, when it's longer form and really meaty, would have been a very hectic job. What was really interesting is, although there were perceived negative things that came out around the metaverse, what Gen Z did feel that the impact of Web3 technologies would have was a influence on education. And I think that's particularly interesting with them entering the workplace around what type of skills and qualities they'll be picking up from their education that will then enable them to enter a digital workforce.
Yeah, that goes on to the whole thing about what can employers do to you know get the right content in front of people, and something that is like fully immersive. The talking heads videos, the 360 videos. You can go into an office and look around. A day in the life video or a profile. These are all about trying to immerse people into the organization, isn't it? So definitely, I think that the metaverse has a role to play on that for sure. But it's in terms of work-life balance. I mean, that's particularly interesting. What do you think be the kind of key takeaway considerations for employers when reading that stat?
Well, I think the main takeaway that I would find for employers to be thinking about when they're putting out content for roles or advertisements is, yes, Gen Z want a work life harmony, but how does that translate in the workplace? It's all well and good saying, we can, offer slightly different packages and things like that. But I think what they want to know is that there's an air of, and within reason, almost flexibility within the
Mm.
workplace. So if you do have to go to that doctor's appointment, do you feel guilty about asking for it? If there's members of the team, maybe the latter end of Gen Z that may have children, like, is it accounted for that they're able to go and pick up their daughter from nursery? And Kat, you've got a little daughter, and like you've set the work hours so that that can facilitate that. And I think those things and remembering that we're human beings are super important. So I think while we talk about work life balance, it's dialing down into what that actually means in practice and how that then translates in the workplace. So it's not just about logging off at 5:30 on the dot. It's about making sure that your team can take adequate breaks and that they're able to talk to mentors that are in different generations to them. And I think that's the important thing for me here.
I do totally agree with that, and especially in regards to the flexibility, I fully appreciate, because we have to caveat here that our business isn't like every other business, and therefore more corporate businesses, for example, may not have as much flexibility. But it's about what you can do instead, and that's not only to get people in to the business, but also to retain them, and retaining them is super important. And I think there's that element that Sinead just said around feedback and really listening. Like, I can't emphasize that enough in terms of talk to me, get to know your team, get to know the people that are coming into your business, because one person's situation could be very, very different to the next. And there's that, unconscious bias or that assumption that maybe that person is very similar to you, but actually you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. So being able to listen and being able to be a sounding board, and also to take suggestions. We have a quarterly survey. It's really a pulse check on how people are doing and from a well-being perspective. And we always have a slightly different theme, and we always ask for feedback. And the survey, prior to the one that's just gone out, actually everything that came back was around financial planning, and that the team didn't feel that they were equipped enough to be able to financially plan for their future, not from our work perspective or from a business perspective, but just generally in life. So I went away and I said, right, what can I do? Let me try and find some people that can come in and talk to you, that you can have a one-to-one session with, that you can try and build a little bit more confidence or just your knowledge around a particular subject or topic or area of your life that you are struggling with. So I think just that, really, if you're going to ask for feedback or ideas, you have to then be willing to listen and take them on wherever appropriate. And knowing that about a business, if I was, coming into a business as a Gen Z, knowing that my opinions are going to be heard, that I'm going to be involved in a conversation, that genuinely things are going to change as a result of feedback, I think is one of the most important factors for employer brands.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, there's that thing about really, in a way, the responsibility of an employer to be more of a coach rather than having a very transactional relationship. And that kind of coaching role can happen before someone even applies. In fact, you'd argue that it's a crucial part of employer branding. Is if you have a certain vibe as an organization and you stand for certain things as an organization, you can express those things and vibes through things that you can do by your actions to people who are thinking about maybe applying. That thing around financial planning is, you think about it, fortunately it is, severely lacking in education, even higher education, where they're actually students spending lots of money on degrees. That thing about financial planning isn't really there. So I think, the role of employers to actually go, how can we coach Gen Z? I think is really important, rather than going back to what we talked about as previous generations going, well, I just got on with it. So, well, yeah, good, fair dues, but be successful, you know, because of the system, not despite the system.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think for me, there's something around the fact that that can start way before the entry point, as you said. That can be in the way you write the communications in your job description, right? Are you looking as a business for a culture fit? Well, firstly, you shouldn't be looking for someone to fit in to your existing culture, because then you're insinuating that if there's a reason that they don't, that potentially they wouldn't be right for you. And it's that flipping it on its head, because even the communications could put someone that has great talent and great ambition off applying for a role. A culture ad is something that
Yeah.
we've read in some of the great collateral that's shared within our industry. I think is it Jenny
Jenny
Childs that
yeah.
talks about that. And I think just switching that and that the language and the linguistics used in like content marketing and the visuals, making sure it's representative. So that can be done before anyone even approaches your brand. It's showing that you're there, you're open. CV-less interviews has become a bit of a trend. It's something that I would quite like to see taken at a more junior level, because I think it's unfair to be asking those entering the world of work to have 3 years of experience when they're entering, and that's something you see quite often.
And like employers removing the need for a degree, that all of a sudden takes what is I think maybe quite a brutal gauge of success, isn't it? Is just to say a degree. But I can see how it's got to that point because, you know, interested parties are, going, well, look, we want more people into education, the government. We want as many students in higher education, the universities, so, you know, yeah, I mean, again, that's a whole a whole other conversation. But it's, I think, yeah, when you remove that need for a degree, then actually the qualifying of whether or not you are suitable, whether or not that employer is suitable for you, becomes a bit more nuanced and a bit more maybe sophisticated and a lot more interesting, I think.
Just different experiences, life experiences. We have. So the reason I was finally saying, yeah, take away degrees, because I didn't go to university and I don't have a degree, but that doesn't mean I can't be successful. And I had to take a pay cut in my first job because of not having a degree. And we have people, school leavers that we hire, and it's a different. They have been through different things. They've experienced different things in their lives, which can only add value to an organization. So I just urge any employer to really strip that back. Great if you've got a degree that is completely relevant to your career, or that brings you, something, and that's something you wanted to do, but don't discount the people that haven't.
Matthew Syed in his Rebel Ideas, book talks about, having people from different backgrounds and not relying on just recruiting for the same kind of mold. He talks about the CIA and totally missing 9/11 because they were great at what they did, but they just didn't have that kind of understanding, that empathy, or maybe what people on the other side of the world were thinking and what they were potentially capable of doing. Should we leave it with, so you've got someone who's listening, they're going into an early careers meeting, early careers marketing meeting. It could be they're preparing for the next graduate recruitment round, or preparing, for their apprenticeship marketing campaign. What what would you say that they should be talking about if you picked one or two things? Maybe choose one each.
I think if I had to pick one, it's just that red thread throughout any content has to be sense checked, right? We can all sit here, as we said, we're not Gen Z, we have Gen Z in the business so that we can have their point of view. And I think it's not a problem if you bring a wealth of experience to that role, but if you're not the person you're marketing to, then just sense check the thinking, ask that demographic, ask, if you're looking for someone that has expertise in something, and you don't have it, what would you do? You'd ask them for their feedback or how you do it. So before going ahead with signing off those content plans, I would just say sense check the creative, the visuals, the representation with the audience you want to target.
Yeah, great. And I think for me, it's that it comes back to that affinity bias. So, everything that you're doing, don't just assume that people are going to have the same interests or the same hobbies or the same, things that they like to do. So, from anything that you are talking about, content, anything that you are thinking about putting out there, you have to be really, really careful about. Again, it builds on what Sinead was saying, but particularly in regards to things around culture and personal lives, because you don't know what's going on in someone's life and you can't expect them to bring something that you have assumed into that workplace. So just remove that. And I think it will make for a much better process.
Nice, thank you. Well, I think certainly there's a place that people can go, which is in description. The description next to this video is pop over to take a look at Imagen Insights website. Make sure to actually download that report as well. And if anyone does want to get that open access and fairly quick feedback from cohort that's going to help them improve the way that they engage with future and existing Gen Z employees, then you know where to go. Go and have a chat with Sinead and Cat. Thanks very much, you two. Really appreciate it, and have a good rest of the day.
Thanks. Bye bye.